Today, we're going to talk about Crabtree today. Crabtree, Pennsylvania. When I think about Crabtree, Grapeville comes to mind because there was a similar situation. Grapeville began one place up on the turnpike and ended up somewhere else over on the railroad. For Crabtree, the same thing happened. It started out one place and ended up about 2 miles away. We'll talk about that and show you some mapping and pictures, how it moved around. Crabtree is one of those places, you might say, like Irwin, that probably would never have happened if not for coal. Coal was the big factor in the birth and development of Crabtree. It's never been a really big place, around 200, 300 people. And as far as I know, it was never really incorporated as a political entity. It was kind of like sprawled out right where Unity Township meets with Salem and Hempfield Township, kind of like a juncture, little corner of those three townships coming together. The other thing I want to say about Crabtree is that a person responsible for its coming about was an Irish immigrant, Thomas Donahue. Thomas Donahue was born in Ireland in 1830. By 1856, Thomas Donahue showed up in Greensburg. He was a rather visible Greensburger. He was what you would call a mover and a shaker. Actually, one time he was actually elected Burgess of Greensburg, which is the guy in charge when you have a borough. That was before Greensburg was a city. But Thomas Donahue was elected Burgess, and he didn't want the job. He turned it down. He had enough other stuff going on. He really was one of those guys who had a finger in a lot of different pies. He wasn't just involved in the coal business. He was a person responsible for introducing longhorned cattle to the area. He was in the grain business. And as a person involved in coal, he was one of the first persons to introduce coke ovens to the county in his operations up around Crabtree. Thomas Donahue, I think, was involved to some degree with Jamison Coal, but that is a bit shady because Jamison Coal's first mine was called Donahue Mine, likely for Thomas Donahue. And when Thomas Donahue moved out of the Crabtree operation, Donahue moved in, or rather Jamison moved in. It wasn't too long after Thomas Donahue started his operation at Crabtree. Well, his operation up there was called Alexandria Coal Company, which began in the 1880s, and by 1890, Alexandria Coal Company had produced, in that year, 1890, about more than 250,000 tons. That's tons of coal. They had done that with about 190 miners, and they also had coke ovens by that time, close to 300, about 292 coke ovens in 1890. And then very shortly, Thomas Donahue moved out of Alexandria Coal Company and started his own coal company over at Greenwald, which was just a stone's throw away, which we'll see pictures of. Now we get to look at a few pictures. I put this up here. This is a corner of Unity Township. And right in here is what we want to look at. Even though it says Crabtree, that is not the Crabtree we know today. The Crabtree we know today happens to be over here. This is Crabtree. And this over here is about 2 miles away. I was just out there yesterday, went for a ride up through Crabtree and then came down through Old Crabtree. It's now called Old Crabtree. This is a present contemporary map that the courthouse has made. Recorder of Deeds office. This is Crabtree over here. Here you see Greenwald, which I drove past yesterday, and through Crabtree and through Greenwald and came down this way through Old Crabtree. Only this contemporary map does not have it exactly right. Actually, Old Crabtree was more down here. I think I'll have a better map that I can show you. Here we go. This is Old Crabtree over here. The contemporary map had it up here, which is close. If you forget about the green lines for a minute, they're the roads. But I just want to point out the fact, the railroads, how the railroad follows the streams. It's a good study in how railroad building goes along. They follow the streams because that's the places which are the least mountainous or hilly. The streams go through the lowlands. And the railroads need that because they have a heck of a lot of tonnage to haul, and they can't haul it up big hills. Now this, it says it's Goff. And it was Goff until 1908, when it became Crabtree. This is Greenwald out here, which was Thomas Donohue's doing, as was the mine here at Crabtree. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit on Old Crabtree. This is Old Crabtree. And at this time, St. Vincent had a church here instead of the church that they have up at what we now know as Crabtree. And right across from the church, George S. Knoll had a blacksmith shop. This was Knoll's blacksmith shop in Old Crabtree. And sometimes you find rather unusual combinations. This was a combination of a blacksmith shop on this side and a post office over on this side. Crabtree Post Office was, at that time, it says 1892, Crabtree Post Office was at Old Crabtree rather than where it is now, New Crabtree. This gives us a picture of a number of things. This view from 1917. This is when the new roads were a big deal because automobiles were becoming important. And the red lines show the roads, whereas the black lines are showing the railroads. This right here shows the main line of the Pennsylvania Railroad going through. And right at this place here, called Donohue, that is where the Alexandria branch took off and went up here through places like Winthrop, Sowash, and up to Crabtree. And then on up to New Alexandria. It was called the Alexandria branch. Recall the first mine at Crabtree was called the Alexandria Mine. Also, there's another line, another black line going up this way, telling us that the streetcar was also going up here. In the year 1900, the streetcar made it the whole way up to New Alexandria, having gone through Crabtree and Greenwald. This is 1939. And no one ever said mines were pretty places. They weren't. This is Crabtree over here, the new Crabtree. This is Greenwald over here. And maybe we can come in and get a little bit closer look at things. This is the road going from Crabtree out to Greenwald. I was just on that yesterday. And this is where the mine was, over here. These are coke ovens up here. This is the railroad running through. And you can see the road running down through here. And on this curve, what you see all along here are big slag piles, bony dumps. And I was really surprised to see how well they had been, a lot of it was hauled away and there had been vegetation planted on there. But I was going around that curve in 1971 in wintertime, and I took that picture. That shows the slag piles in wintertime. It was just such a nice photo opportunity. I couldn't resist stopping and getting a shot there. That's the way the mine looked. Probably around 1910, in that neighborhood. You can see that they had a powerhouse there making electricity. By 1910, the Crabtree mine had been electrified. And at this point, I think we've gone far enough. Slick and Shiny Productions has once again put together a somewhat less than slick and shiny production on Crabtree. And we're going to do another one. We'll see you again when we once more talk about Crabtree. So bye for now.